Well, now we can move on to our final movie, which is a sequel to the 1982 Creepshow. This one being, believe it or not, Creepshow 2 from 1987. This one only has 3 stories compared to the 5 stories the original Creepshow had. 3 stories are, of course, are short stories, so moderately simple. One, this elderly couple, something happens to them, and a like giant chief Indian type statue gets revenge for them. Then there's a probably one of the more talked about stories from the Creepshow series, The Raft, in which case it's like an oil blob type thing in the water, and these teens are trying to survive that. And final story being about a hitchhiker who a woman runs over, and the hitchhiker keeps coming back, asking for a ride. I guess technically thanking her for the ride, but yeah, it's a I mean, this is one that I'm assuming a lot of people have seen. I don't think it holds a candle to the original. I do think the framing story, which is done in an animation style, it's late 80s animation, so to me it looks a bit outdated, but it's okay. The framing story is decent. I did like the finale to the framing story. That was fun, but I don't know if it's quite as engaging as the first movie's framing sequence. I don't know. I'll just say this movie is nearly as It's not nearly as good as the first Creepshow, and I'll just say right now that I think my favorite story is probably the first one, being the old Chief Warden had. I think it has a decent emotional impact, and while I enjoy aspects of The Raft, which is based on a Stephen King short story, actually. On a side note, that story, I mean, there's not much to it, and I don't know if it's really enough to give it like such a glowing review. But before I talk about how much I hated The Hitchhiker, what do you think about Creepshow 2, Chucky?
Well, you like that first one because of the dude's hair. You loved his hair.
Okay, that guy got a bit annoying. It's been a little while since I've seen this one, so I actually forgot how annoying that guy was. So.
Yeah, I'd seen this once before years ago, and yeah, I watched it again last night. And for anyone who watched our review or discussion of the original Creepshow, they'll know that I'm not a huge fan of anthology movies, and that's mainly because I guess the segments don't go long enough for me to really get into them, and even if I am enjoying them, they're over, in 20 minutes, so it's not like enjoying a whole movie. So you have one segment that you kind of like, and then it's followed with another segment, and you kind of like, and though this one, I think the original, was it 5 stories?
Yes.
Yeah, and then this one's only 3?
Yep.
Yeah, so this one, the segments go maybe a little bit longer, but they're still, 25 minutes or whatever it is, just under half an hour each. I mean, the Raft one's decent. Like I said, there's not too much to it. The first one's also fine. Well, all 3 of them to me are okay. I didn't really have any highs or lows. I just thought they were all okay to decent. And of course, the Blob remake from 1988 that came along, and it's kind of the same thing as The Raft, but much better. And they can make it more than 20 minutes long. Yeah, I think it's okay. I can watch it, but I don't necessarily have any desire to go back and watch it anytime soon. The animated segments also didn't really do much for me. I didn't really care about that.
Yeah, I don't think they're great, but especially like the final sequence, it's it's sort of goofy enough, and animated, just I was okay with it. Seeing like the kid laugh evilly as the plant things are messing with the bodies, I was okay with it. I think one of the reasons that the first sequence always stood out with me was just a very nice old couple in a very dark town. That if that town had a population of more than 50 people, I'll be deeply surprised. Very nice couple, and then these total dicks come in, stuff happens to them. Spoilers, they die. So I know it's very touching because I thought that couple, guy being George Kennedy, who's a very big name, and the woman being a Dorothy Lamour. I thought that, even though it's a very short story, I thought they did really well. And I certainly felt like an emotional target of the house, and they seemed like a real couple. So, I mean, I don't know, and when the whole, statue comes to life, and it goes after the three guys who did this, I mean, it's not particularly gory, but, this, I I don't know, I like the idea of the silhouette, using a tomahawk and getting that one guy in the garage, it was creative. That's why I think the first toy is probably the best one. My problem with the raft is, aside from there not being much to it, I mean, are there any characters in that worth rooting for? Aside from, like, I guess the blob monster? Like, the four guys, two girls, two guys, they were just generic cookie cutter characters who, honestly, I don't remember a thing about any of them aside from the fact that none of them were worth caring about. And just a little about the hitchhiker. I am, and this comes up anytime we get to anything getting close to comedy horror. This story is a bit more comedic, not necessarily to the main woman character, but and obviously, when I first saw this movie as a kid, I did like the first story. Then I saw the movie a few years later, and I still did like that hitchhiker story. And every time I've seen this movie, and it's probably been about 3 or 4 times, the hitchhiker story always seems so weak to me because one, it's not like the story is necessarily original. I have no idea how many times the whole hitchhiker trope has appeared in movies, but this is not the first time it's come up. And I don't think there's enough in the story to really keep my entertainment going. I don't know, it sort of ends the movie on sort of like a very generic note, which, like Chucky says, it's one of the problems with anthology movies because it's very, very rare you find an anthology movie where every single story is good. I've seen quite a few anthology movies, and I can only think of maybe 1 or 2 movies where I would say every story is definitely above average. So that's the problem with these movies. I mean, that said, I still like the first Creepshow, but this one, especially with only 3 stories, there just wasn't enough here to entertain me nearly as much as the first movie did.
I mean, the Hitchhiker one's obviously got some decent gory stuff happen at the end, and I guess the funniest thing about it is the guy at the start saying he charges $150 for 6 orgasms.
Yes, he certainly was. Yes, and a big part about the last story, actually, the main woman is, she's cheating on her husband with this one guy, and she's only in it for the money. She's just such an unlikable character that seeing this hitchhiker zombie guy, sort of like pop up after her, like I was okay with it. So I mean, it's like sometimes, in a movie or like a story like this was, when there's no sympathetic characters, it's just really hard to care about what's going on. I mean, and that's also true, like I said, for the raft. But hitchhiker, I mean, that woman just annoyed me, so I just didn't care.
Yeah. I guess the only other thing that I wanted to say about this one was just how ambitious that guy was on the raft. There's only 2 of them left, and they're, trying to survive this thing that's trying to kill them, and, he starts trying to get some sex.
Yeah, that was not in my opinion, that's not the right time.
Yeah.
Actually, I was really impressed that cow didn't die. like the music was playing for it was at least like 12 hours. Like that was
overnight or something.
Yeah, it was a very strong battery right there.
Yeah, definitely not the right time to get laid, and even more awkward that girl was the other guy's girlfriend, not his girlfriend. So, he must have really been up for it.
Yeah, I guess he saw an opening and maybe he could take it. Actually, now you mention it, I should say as much as the raft doesn't do a lot for me, the special effects are pretty solid. This blob type creature sort of disintegrates the skin, down to the bones, and so the special effects, like Chucky said, they're not really far removed from the blob, which came out the following year. But this Fast and Fox is still pretty good. And same thing for the Hitchhiker. So I mean, I would say the movie probably succeeds enough in that aspect, but it just the stories, the second two stories just aren't that great. I did notice, I was reading a bit about this movie, and originally there was supposed to be 5 stories, but due to budgetary issues, it was sort of cut down to 3, which is somewhat disappointing because I sort of wonder, had they had more stories, if the movie would have been better. You might have disliked it more, but I mean, it can't be as bad as Creepshow 3, so.
Well, I never saw 3, so.
I've never seen it either. I've just only heard bad things about it.
Oh, okay.
So, and when I do see that, it'll be a good time. So this movie, I'll just go ahead and rate it if that's okay. 6 out of 10.
Okay. Yeah, no, I've got the exact same rating, 6 out of 10. It's okay. I mean, I actually don't have a preference with the first or the second one, like one over the other. I think in terms of just enjoyment for me, they're both on the same level. I know for you prefer the original, but yep, for me, like I said, I didn't dislike any of the stories in part 2, but none of them also threw it over the top either. And with the first one, I thought there were a couple of decent stories, and then also a couple that didn't do anything for me. So they'll kind of balance out to about the same.
Yeah, I think for me, the first movie, it's just so classic in my opinion. And even though none of the stories are utterly amazing, even like the bad stories, like the one that Stephen King becoming plant type guy, even that was intriguing. And I just don't get the same sense here. It doesn't feel nearly as classic, and it just didn't do nearly as much as I was hoping for.